Thank you so much. We're right on time. We're keeping with our tradition of saving questions for the end. Our next speaker, Julian Degen, continues on the Herodotean theme. He comes to us from the Institute for Altgeschichte und Altorientalistik at Innsbruck, where he too works with Robert Rollinger. He has written on dimensions of Hellenistic and ancient Near Eastern violence in Herodotus' Histories, various aspects of Alexander the Great, and on ancient Near Eastern traditions in Xenophon's Chiropaideia, among many other topics. He is the winner of several important prizes and has participated in past Melamu events. And his principal scholarly interests are Greek historiography, the Achaemenids, Alexander the Great, and cultural relations between empires, again, among others. His talk this afternoon is Herodotus and the Persian Priests, the Histories as a Source for Iranian Religion. And maybe, Marissa, you can play with the screen.
So before I start, I want to thank Professor Dr. Rahim Shaigan and Dr. Marissa Stevens for this nice opportunity to speak here for such a well-respected audience. Experts on the Achaemenids do not cast doubt on the high status of Herodotus' Histories as the most important Greek account on pre-Hellenistic Iran. Although the work earns the status from its detailed descriptions on Persian society and kingship, the reliability of its information nonetheless is topic of a still ongoing debate. This applies in special to the vexed question if the histories do contain proper information on Iranian religion or not. In the last 40 or so years, scholarship achieved different results regarding the reliability of Herodotus' presentation of non-Greek religion. One of the main voices on this issue is still Mary Boyce with her heavily debated book on Achaemenid religion. She views Herodotus' work as a reliable source, although she is aware that some of his statements do not go confirm with the sources she used for assessing Persian religion. In her book, she defends the status of the Histories as key source. The status of the history as key source by assuming that Herodotus, as an ethnographer, was only as good as his sources were. This point of view is still common among experts on Greek historiography. However, after the fundamental publications of Detlef Fehling and François Ardoc, new trends in scholarship on Herodotus emerged and went at variance with the communist opinion. John Michelson, in his book titled Herodotus and Religion in the Persian Wars, for instance, underlines the Greekness of the Halicarnassians' presentation of foreign religion. Regarding this, Thomas Harrison put a finer point to Herodotus' perception of religion. He views the histories as a source of high value for assessing the Greeks' discursive knowledge on foreign religion. Furthermore, experts on Iranian religion like Antonio Banaino questioned the high-ranked status of the histories by highlighting that later Greek authors had better and more profound knowledge on Persian religion than the Halicarnassian had. Therefore, it seems that Herodotus did not aim at providing an accurate description of Persian religion to his audience. As a consequence, we must ask the question about Herodotus' intentions for his presentation of Iranian religion. Kai Trampetach, for instance, did very recently focus on the role of the Magi as dream interpreters and concluded that Herodotus used them for highlighting the antithesis between Eastern despotism and the freedom of the Greeks. However, that may be. In my talk, I will tackle the question if the histories earn their highly esteemed status as a source for Persian religion or not by scrutinizing the role of the Magi as wielders of the Persian religion in the word of Herodotus. I will argue that the Magi in Herodotus' account played a role as narrative tools and mouthpiece of the narrator and thus have little or nothing to do with the practice of Iranian religion. I will develop my argumentation in two steps. Firstly, I will examine the cultural background of the literary motifs in the dreams, which are subjects of the Magi's interpretation. The second focus of my argumentation will be on the Magi's practice of religion during Xerxes' campaign against Hellas. The Magi mostly make their appearance as dream interpreters in the world of Herodotus. We find the first instance from Magi interpreting dreams in the so-called Medicos Logos. The last Median ruler, Astyages, had a dream about his daughter Mandane urinating in such great extent that whole Asia became flooded. In their role as experts on divination, the Magi told him that one day he will be dethroned by his grandchild. For avoiding this prediction, Astyages married Mandane to Cambyses, a Persian whom he regarded as being of lower status than a noble meet. By linking his daughter with Cambyses, Astyages thought to have escaped his fate. In fact, by doing so, Herodotus linked Persian history with Median history and thus gave context to the Translatio Imperii from the so-called Median Empire to the Persian Empire to come. Scholarship, however, went into defending the authenticity of this passage by pointing to the dream's possible ancient Near Eastern background. We can find the trope of urine predicting the birth of a new king in the Assyrian dream book from the 2nd millennium BCE. By following Antonio Banaino's convincing conclusion, it rather seems that the dream took its basic inspiration from an ancient Near Eastern model than being a direct quotation. This implies that Herodotus did less follow an ancient Near Eastern role model, but made use of a rich folk tradition for his purposes. On these grounds, the dream cannot be used as an argument for viewing the Herodotine Magi as Iranian diviners. A close look at Astyages' second dream confirms this result. This time, the Median ruler dreamed about grape wine growing out of his daughter's private parts and again covered all of Asia. The Magi told the interpretation of the dream to Astyages. He ordered his yet unborn grandson Cyrus to be killed. As we know, the further story about Cyrus as the future founder of the Persian Empire, however, went another way. Seen from this point of view, the interpretation of these two dreams by the Magi are passages for understanding the histories as a coherent narrative. Each interpretation of the priests is a vaticinium ex evento, foreshadowing Persian imperial supremacy over Asia in the world of Herodotus. This is of great significance, since the chronological structure of Herodotus' first book can be explained best by the succession of empires ruling over Asia. Seen against this backdrop, the Magi's interpretation of Astyages' dream signals the transition of Median to Persian supremacy over Asia in Herodotus' narrative, and thus turns out to be an argument for viewing the dream and their interpretations as literary products of Herodotus, for creating a concise history of Asia. The histories are full of evidence for supporting this assumption. It is striking that the Halicarnassian used the term Asia for describing the Persian Empire as political entity. All this gathers momentum when we have a closer look on the motive of Astyages' second dream. This vision of his dream was about a grape wine, ampelos in Greek, growing out of Mandane's private parts and covering all of Asia. It is striking that no ancient Eastern text concentrating on grape wine in the context of dreams came to us. This finally opens the floor for a discussion about the meaning of grape wine in the context of Herodotus' work. As we learned from another episode, the Halicarnassian fruit grape wine as one of the main symbols of the Achaemenid dynasty. Furthermore, the extant fragments of the accounts of Alexander of Macedon's royal announcer Charis of Mytilene and the campaigner Myntus and the 3rd BCE century writer Agathophikis of Cnidos are additional evidence for the close association of grape wine with the Achaemenid kingship, at least in the eyes of the Greek writers. Hence, there is no room for doubt that Herodotus' Greek audience knew that grape wine covering all of Asia heralds the coming of the Persian Empire, and certainly is less an interpretation by the Iranian Magi, but a literary product of Herodotus. A close look at the last evidence of Magi interpreting dreams in the histories supports this assumption. Xerxes had 3 different dream visions before he campaigned against Hellas. All the three dreams are woven into one long passage on Xerxes' indecision about invading Hellas or not. It is of great significance that three different persons interpreted the three dreams in this passage. While Xerxes himself tried to understand the vision of his first dream, his uncle Artabanus explained the meaning of Xerxes' second dream to him, and finally the Magi interpreted the third dream. This observation gains an importance since Xerxes' second vision is one of the two examples of dreams in the histories possibly bearing an ancient Near Eastern nugget of information. Irene Martreiter, formerly Irene Huber, in a seminal paper has pointed out that Herodotus alluded to the ritual of substitute king in Xerxes' second dream. On this ground, Artabanus and not the Magi achieved an interpretation with a link to the ancient Near East. Nevertheless, the Magi's interpretation of Xerxes' third dream is worth examining. The theme in Xerxes' third vision is all about world domination. This time, the Magi interpreted the dream as an auspicious sign that the great king will enslave all free men. World domination finally is an idea associated frequently with Xerxes in the histories and thus does not need further explanation in this context. The idea of world domination, however, is too a prominent element in the royal Achaemenid inscriptions and might have influenced Herodotus' portrayal of the great king. Especially the versions written in Babylonian language offer a wide range of different semantics for the great king's claim of world domination. Good examples are the royal titles used in Xerxes' famous Deiver inscriptions, quote, "King of lands of the totality of tongues, king of this great far earth," end of quote. The claim of ruling over the whole world, however, is not limited to titles, as we can see in the presentation of the empire's extension. During the reign of Darius I, the limit of the empire has been the Maratu, which is the contemptuous Babylonian conception of geography, the ocean surrounding the inhabited world. As Johannes Haubold has so convincingly shown, Xerxes stated in his inscription to have even surpassed the imaginary borders of his father's empire by claiming factorial rule even beyond the ocean. All in all, world domination is not only a recurring but also an essential element in the world of Achaemenid official language. So did royal Achaemenid ideology serve as a role model for Herodotus when he wrote Xerxes' third dream? It might have done. Although the Greeks associated the claim of world domination closely with the Achaemenid ruler, the Magi's interpretation has a different connotation in this case. The third vision of Xerxes was about him wearing a crown made of olive branches overrunning the whole world. The olive branch, however, stands for Athens and its empire in the context of the histories. As we learn from Herodotus' account on the revival of the sacred olive tree on the Acropolis in Athens after the Persians' arson, the olive tree is a symbol for the rise of the Athenian Empire. This passage is a turning point in the narrative of the histories, since it marks the end of Persian victories in Hellas and the beginning of the Greek counterattack towards the northern Aegean led by Athens. Although the focus of Herodotus' display of history at this point is not on the rise of Athens anymore, the Athenian Empire, nevertheless, is the subject of Herodotus' subtle but decisive criticism throughout his whole work. A good argument can be made out of Herodotus' description of Ecbatana as the capital of the Median Empire as Asia's first empire, with close parallels to the physical appearance of Athens. In this regard, the expansionism of Athens by establishing Klerouchai in the focus of Cyrus' advice towards the Persians at the very end of the histories, as Kai Ruffing has so convincingly pointed out. If we read Herodotus' statement about Persian imperialism displayed in this passage alongside with the contemptuous account of Thucydides, we see that the Persian Empire is meant to be the Athenian Arche, for what enough supportive evidence can be found in both works. All this carried to conclusion that Persia became the subject of the Greeks' discourse on imperial power in general. Seen against this backdrop, it's not surprising that the Magi's interpretation of Xerxes' third dream has more in common with the harsh treatment of the Athenians towards the members of the Delian League, and has, so to say, really nothing to do with Iranian religion. In the final segment of my talk, I will bring an additional argument for viewing the role of the Magi as narrative tool of Herodotus by discussing their practice of religion. According to Herodotus, the Persians did sacrifice 9 Thracian girls and boys under the guidance of the Magi when they reached the river Strymon on the campaign against Hellas. The supervision of the sacrifice by the Magi can be taken for granted, since sacrifices always requested the presence of a magus, according to the Histories. It is striking that Herodotus endeavors to convince his readers of sacrificing humans by burying them alive is a Persian custom. Nevertheless, this does not apply to the Persian customs as Herodotus presents them in a longer digression in the first book of the Histories. In this passage, he leaves no room for doubt that the Persians did only sacrifice animals to the gods. This gains momentum when we take another passage into consideration. In the third book of the Histories, Herodotus comes to talk about a main principle of his presentation of foreign ethnoi. In the eyes of the Halicarnassian, each ethnos in the Ecumene has its own customs, setting the legal framework for actions of its cultural agents. If you read now the passage of this, on the sacrifice of Thracian children, with the main principle of Herodotene ethnography in mind, this passage cannot be explained by the Persian cultural context of the Histories. Therefore, this passage is context-hungry and acquires its precise connotation from context. The fact that Herodotus states that the Persians sacrificed Thracian children is of significance, since sacrificing humans is a Thracian custom in the world of Herodotus. A close look on the Halicarnassian's explanation for these sacrifices confirms the assumption that this episode has nothing to do with Persian religion. It is striking that the raison d'être for the sacrifices is related to the numerical symbolism of the toponym Enea Hodoi, 9 ways. This is also where Herodotus' story begins to look familiar to the contemptuous Greek readers, since the Persian ritual has parallels to a Greek tale about this very place. We gain important information for this episode's context from an educated ancient commentator on Aeschines' famous speech on the embassy held in the 30s of the 4th century. According to this scholiast, the region of Enea Hodoi has been in the focus of Athenian imperial ambitions in the time from 476 to 427, the approximately lifespan of Herodotus. The Athenians finally failed 9 times to found a colony there, since the interventions of the local Thracians rendered every attempt impossible. This imperial trauma became topic not only of an episode in the Histories, but also found its way in the work of Thucydides and finally centered the tale about Phyllis and Demophon. As we see, at the location where the Athenians failed with their imperial project, the same did the Persians later with their attempt to invade Hellas. Taking this in consideration, the human sacrifice can be explained by pointing to the common Greek view of Magi doing unholy things. A close look at the Greek terms used by Herodotus confirms this assumption. He uses the verb pharmakoio, what means doing sacred rites and unholy things. Seen against this backdrop, the Magi's practice of Iranian religion in this episode is a merge of Greek tales associated with the 9 ways and the common view of Magi doing unholy rites for explaining the taboo of sacrificing humans. On these grounds, the Herodotene Magi are less acting out of the Iranian script, but their operational intent goes back to Herodotus. Time to ask the final question. Did the audience of Herodotus' days view his presentation of the Magi as proper depiction of Iranian priests, or did they understand the function as the author's mouthpiece in the Histories? I will argue in the support of the latter. Evidence for Iranian's presence in the sanctuaries of Asia Minor, as we know from both epigraphical and historiographical sources, show that the Greeks were familiar with Iranians in religious contexts. This implies that the Greek audience of Herodotus' time did understand when the author used the magi as his own literary purposes in the intellectual discourse of his works. All this means that in the case of Herodotus' magi, religion steps back and Herodotus' literary purposes come to the fore. Thank you very much for your attention.